All right, welcome to the Let It Fly show. I am Michael Severe, one half of the duo normally hosting the show, but Josh is off today. Wife's sick, kids are sick, just like so many people across Omaha, Nebraska, and the country with influenza going around and RSV going around and everything going around. You understand that he is home with that. So I tell you, if you're not feeling good, don't go into work, don't go to church, don't go anywhere where you can get other people sick. Just take your medicine, get some sleep, load up on the fluids, and then get back to work or wherever you're going once you feel better. Again, we are, of course, live here at the Let It Fly Sports Bar in the Capital District. We normally tape on Tuesday nights, which is the case this time. It is, I believe, 12 to 14 degrees, minus 12 to 14 degrees outside right now. But we are dealing with that, and I'm one of the few people who here in Omaha love it. I love the cold, always have. I went out there 3 times yesterday to shovel and snow blow and got great joy out of it. I really do. I don't know why. I grew up in the heat of New Orleans, and I love the cold. It's very strange, I know. As I mentioned, we are here inside Let It Fly Sports Bar in the Capital District. Of course, food, drinks, an amazing amount of televisions for you to come by and check out. And we are presented by Bud Light. No matter what you're doing, you're at home, Let It Fly Sports Bar. Maybe you are at a man cave or some friend's house. It is a good thing to do. It is the thing to do. Easy drinking, easy buckets, easy touchdowns, easy spikes, easy soon-to-be home runs and strikeouts. Easy to drink and easy to enjoy. Bud Light, we appreciate that. And also a reminder, we have a very special drink here at Let It Fly Sports Bar. Just $4, you get the Red Bull Watermelon Margarita. Now, I've not had it because I don't drink alcohol, but they're hoping to make me, I'm hoping they make me a mocktail so I can try it as well. But it's just $4 every day here at Let It Fly Sports Bar. And as I mentioned, we are taping on a Tuesday. So it is Taco Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, when this drops with our special guest, it will be Dollar Wing Wednesday, which is pretty awesome as well. Our guest is the newly minted Nebraska Hall of Famer, football Hall of Famer, Chris Kelsay, who, of course, played for Nebraska in the late 90s up until 2002, and then played 10 years of his career in Buffalo as well. But we'll chat with him about Nebraska. We'll get into, he's coaching high school football now. We're getting all that as well. Before we do that, though, headlines. NBA All-Star Weekend. I was hoping to chat about this a little bit with Josh because I thought the way they did the game, having kind of a mini tournament, you had the newcomers, some newcomers, young guys, against some OGs. And then you had the same thing against another game. Excuse me. And then the two teams that won played each other. Now, I thought it was different. Not like when you had the 240 to 210 games that we had for a while that was scoring like crazy, nobody playing defense. At least in this game, you played till 40, right? Each of those 3 games. And so it was a little bit more competitive as it went along. I thought it was a good idea. I think the Elam ending, which is the ending that at a point in the game, they set a ultimate point you need to get to, like it's 9 from the total that you're at then. I like that. I like having to score to win the game. You don't put people on the free throw line, any of that. You just go and you go to try to win the game by outscoring somebody and get to that one number. It was 40 in all 3 of these games, so I thought it was better than it's been. They probably can continue to tweak it. Now, as it is for the dunk contest, I don't know if there's an answer. You know, Matt McClung won. He was incredible. He jumped over a car. He jumped over a car with a guy in the car. He jumped up, and a guy was on a ladder holding a ball, and he dunked one and dunked the other, and he jumped over a guy on a hoverboard spinning. It was an incredible show, but not in-game dunking, you know, for the most part. And so I don't know. I don't know what they can do. Maybe if they can force stars to play. I mean, you got a guy, Matt McClung, who is, you know, playing in the G League, and you got him winning back-to-back dunk contests. So I like the three-point contest. That's fine, but we'll see what they do to tweak it a little bit more. Headline number 2, 4 Nebraska players go to the NFL Scouting Combine, named to that, 3 of which were at the Senior Bowl, and then the 4th, Isaiah Nair, who was at the Shrine Bowl. So we start with Ty Robinson. Excuse me, not a surprise that Ty gets an invite to the Combine. I know there were some people that were surprised when Thomas Fedoni decided to go pro opposed to transferring someplace else or staying in Nebraska. It's kind of working out, you know. He gets invited to the Senior Bowl. He's got good practices, some good practice tape. Then he goes to the Combine. He's going to have a chance to show that he's healthy. That's a big part. You know, he's going to get poked and prodded through all the different medicals because of the injuries he's had. And then he gets to also show his athleticism. This is a guy with giant wingspan. It's a guy who I think is going to run a good 40 time. He's not going to have a great 10, but once he gets those legs going and he can stride out, I think he's going to have a good 40, maybe in the high 4.6s, low 4.7s. For a guy his size, that's not bad time for a tight end. So I think that he's another guy that's going to get drafted. And then I mentioned Isaiah Nair and then Tommy Hill. And Tommy Hill needs this combine. He needs it for showing he's healthy. You know, he's had all these injuries. When he started playing well at the Senior Bowl, he got hurt in that Thursday and had to leave. And so he's got to prove that. And he's got to answer a lot of questions about turning down tackles, not playing well his senior year, not looking a little disinterested at times his senior year. So he's got a lot of questions to answer in those interviews. And he's got to show that he can do it health-wise and put up good numbers running his 40 as well. So a lot for him to do. I think it goes, Thomas Fidone goes first sometime in the 4th round because of the way the tight end class is. You got a lot of good tight ends early, late 1st, most of the 2nd. You have a little gap in the 3rd round. Then you have the 4th round where I think Fidone goes. And then Ty Robinson after him. Then I think Isaiah Nair. And then I think Tommy Hill. Unless Tommy has a great combine, great interviews. Only one team's got to like you, right, in order to get drafted. So that's what I think. And then maybe you have some, Ben Scott is a free agent, the center. Bryce Benhart as left tackle, a lot of starts under his belt. Maybe he gets an opportunity as well. And then, you look around, Brian Buschini as a punter. He's not going to get drafted, but, get into a camp, show what you can do, certainly has an opportunity. MJ Sherman is going to look good when he goes through his pro day, I'm sure. He's a good athlete, so we'll see some of those guys. I don't think they'll get drafted, but undrafted free agents for sure. Number 3, crazy Sunday in college basketball. 2 o'clock starts, right? You got Nebraska on one TV at Northwestern, and you got Creighton on another TV at St. John's, and the games are going back and forth, and at one point Nebraska's down 20 points, and then Ryan Kalkbrenner goes down for Creighton, and they're battling against St. John's in MSG. All the fouls are getting called, and St. John's keeps missing free throws, and Nebraska's battling back. It was really fun to kind of watch at the same time, but Nebraska gets that big comeback to win the game at Northwestern. Another quad 1 win. That's 6 for Nebraska now. And then, of course, Creighton falls to St. John's, but the good news is Ryan Kalkbrenner came back in the game. It looked like with the injury that it was either a mid-foot sprain or it was a break, which certainly don't want that second one, or a fracture. But he comes back in and plays down the stretch in the game. So as bad as it was that Creighton falls to St. John's, which means they're 2 games now behind them in the Big East race. It'll be tough to catch them because they have the tiebreaker over you, so it'll be tough. But still, you got Ryan Kalkbrenner who's healthy, so that's the good thing. And the last one, number 4 for our headlines, of course, the voice of the Huskers football and baseball, Greg Sharp, passed away on Friday. We found out about it Saturday morning as Nebraska made the announcement with his family, the quotes from them. It felt like a lot longer than a year. When Greg made the announcement in April on Sports Nightly that he was battling pancreatic cancer, and the way I always think about it, because we're here in Nebraska, and I know how good the folks are at Nebraska Medical Center, I always think, they'll pull through, they'll be okay. And I watched Greg battle this, and, he had this desire to make the opening game of the season. He made that, and he had great calls against Colorado, and he missed the game in the middle of the season where Bill Doman had to fill in, and at the end of the season, you had to have Lane Grindle fill in, but he battled all throughout that season. And, we started hearing that, he was in hospice and it was coming close to the end. But I've never met anybody that didn't have good things to say about Greg Sharp, really. I mean, he walked into a job as voice of the Huskers that had been fairly controversial, from Pavelka getting booted in 95 to Warren Swain struggling to Jim Rose coming in and Jim deciding with a couple games or a few games left in that 2007 season to step away. And then all of a sudden, you have Greg Sharp come in to fill in, former voice of Kansas State, one of Nebraska's arch enemies. But Greg always handled things great. He handled this battle with cancer incredibly. I always go back and look at text messages with people when they pass away. And, 3 big things. Him asking me to go on Sports Nightly to talk about the draft, which I always appreciated. I love talking about the draft. Talk about our kids and everything that you had to go to and different things. And his daughters were in show choir, and there's all kind of stuff going through. And then we talked about Marvel. We talked about Marvel movies. I went back and looked and how excited he was for Endgame and all of that. And Greg was a special dude. He's a good guy, very good broadcaster, a professional all the way to the end. And we're going to miss him. Our thoughts with his family, his wife and his 3 daughters. Greg's a good guy. Battled to the end. And, of course, didn't lose the battle, just ran out of time. That's what happens with cancer. But we're going to miss Greg. We're going to miss him in the booth, and we're going to miss him, getting a random text from him to want to talk about the draft. So we're certainly going to miss that. Coming up on the show, our guest this week, newly minted Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, 2024 class, Chris Kelsay. Of course, Nebraska, longtime Buffalo Bill, will join us next here on the Let It Fly Show. All right, welcome back to the Let It Fly Show. We are joined by a newly minted 2024 Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, Chris Kelsay, joining us here on Let It Fly Show. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
What was that call like when you found out you were getting into the Hall of Fame?
A little surreal. It was something that I saw my brother go through, so
yeah.
It's always kind of in the back of your mind. You're hoping that you get called up one day too, and but it was just kind of out of the blue. In fact, I received a voicemail from Bob Mancuso.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was in bed when he actually tried calling me, but yeah, good voicemail to listen to, and obviously called back, and the whole process was awesome. So I just feel really honored to be a part of that fraternity and be one of the best to come through Nebraska.
Makes it even more special that, like you said, Chad's already in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to see him get inducted and be part of all the festivities and the dinner and the on-field celebration, and then he was there for me as well. So, we had a lot of fun. Back in those times, I know my parents enjoyed it. There's 9 years straight. He didn't redshirt. I did my freshman year. So there's 9 years in a row where there's a Kelsay brother in the program. And, my mom and dad both were able to make it to the game where they recognized me beforehand. So they hadn't been to a game since we played.
Really?
In Memorial Stadium. So it was just neat for them too, just to see how much everything's changed and kind of relive some of those golden year moments.
Yeah. Sometimes now, you were talking about your kids before we came on. Does the oldest remember you playing?
She does. All 3 of my kids were born in Buffalo, where I spent my entire 10-year career. Very little. Remember it's bits and pieces. She was going through school. Avery was pretty little, and Rhett, he tells me all the time, he's like, dang, Dad, I wish I was this age when you were playing. I was like, so do I, buddy. I wish you could remember. But no, they...
But they get to understand how good you were based off of you getting in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's fun to experience that with them. But, yeah, they don't remember a whole lot of me playing.
Yeah. Chris Kelsay joining us here on Let It Fly Show. You mentioned playing those 10 years in Buffalo. I talked to Amon Green about this. Green Bay feels like a college atmosphere. Did you feel the same way about Buffalo in terms of NFL city?
I did. It's very similar to Lincoln. When I was drafted by the Bills, I had no idea where Buffalo was. I didn't realize it was upstate Western New York. I thought it was, like a suburb of the city, like the Bronx or the Queens or something like that. But I got up there and I was pleasantly surprised. In fact, we tell people all the time, if it wasn't for my wife and I both being from Nebraska and most of our family still living here, we would have stayed up there. We absolutely loved it. The people were great. But it's all Buffalo, just like it's all Huskers here. And obviously we have Creighton here in Omaha as well. But you got the Buffalo Sabres and you got the Buffalo Bills, and that's about it.
Yeah. We got, when we're taping this, it's like minus 12 or something outside. Not a big deal for you.
No, it's funny. People,
just a little bit of snow.
Yeah, people say that all the time, but it gets colder here in Nebraska. You just get a heck of a lot more snow up there with that lake effect. So, but again, nothing I wasn't used to.
We got to see the last couple of years playoff games in the snow in Buffalo. What was that like when you had those games where, especially you're playing against a team like Miami or somebody?
Right. That's when it's good, right? Here's what people don't understand. People that haven't played football, it's cold for us too.
Yeah, right.
If we could play in 70 degrees heat, that would be perfect. But yeah, it's like going down to Miami, week 1 or 2 of the season. Yeah. We've done that before too, and it's brutal. They're used to it. They're conditioned to it, and we're conditioned into it. On the flip side, when you come to Buffalo and December, January, it's going to be cold, and more than likely you're going to have snow on the ground. So you use it to your advantage. You can practice it that week or leading up to that game. But at the end of the day, we all have to play in it. And
Yeah.
sure, we're used to it, but it can be detrimental to both sides.
It seems that one of the most important things, though, is when you target that quarterback and you know he's going to be throwing in that wind, you know you need a big guy with big hands. That kind of directs you in the draft a little bit more in terms of how you're drafting, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because I've heard many quarterbacks that played in Elements say this, and Tom Brady is the one that jumps out at me because I played him 20 times in my 10 years up there being in the same division. When it's snowing, he's throwing.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, wide receivers know where they're going, defensive backs don't. So getting in and out of breaks and trying to cover those guys are really tough. So some guys use it to their advantage.
Yeah. I would always, I played a little bit of quarterback in high school. I hated when the wind was behind me,
right?
Because I couldn't judge how far. Yeah. When I'm throwing in the wind, at least I know how hard to throw. Yeah. So you have to almost be a technician out there with that stuff. All right, so you're a little bit 2 years behind Chad. Kind of what was that like following him going through school?
It was a blessing. 2.5 years, 3 grades. He was a senior when I was a freshman, both at Auburn and at the university. So I had a guy kind of show me the way, like pave the way for me, and it helped me tremendously. I looked up to him my entire life. He was my biggest role model, and then you finally get to a point in college when you realize that there might be potential to take this thing further, and then you want to beat him. It becomes a competition. You want to do better than Big Brother. But I moved up to Lincoln right after I graduated high school. Moved in with him and his roommate at the time, Steve Raymond, linebacker from Gary, Nebraska, and they just showed me the ropes. I got right into the workouts and meeting everybody, and who a lot of them I knew just from having Chad up there and going up there and visiting and watching games, and I'd even watch summer workouts and stuff, hang out. But there's just that familiarity that just I felt kind of put me ahead of the recruiting class. So when they showed up, I was just a foot ahead of them as far as just not having to know everything, not having to learn everything, not having to make those relationships. Those are already done, and it was just smooth sailing. But he taught me the way for sure. It was definitely a lot of help having him up there.
Was it tough with Coach Osborne stepping down and having to go that with Frank Solich and that new? Well, I know it's pretty much the same staff, but just kind of a new era.
Yeah, growing up, I always wanted to play for Coach Osborne, and I committed to him after my junior year in high school, and he retired my senior year. So I was his last recruiting class, but never got to play for him, which I would have loved to have done. But I cherish my time with Coach Solich. I think he got a raw deal when they asked him to step down, 9-3 season. But that's a whole different jar to open up. But my time there, being a captain for Coach Solich and playing for Coach McBride, and really all those other coaches, that Coach Darlington, Coach Bull, all the guys, Coach Brown, the guys that they were during the glory days and were there all those years, had many opportunities to leave and go elsewhere, but they just stuck together. They stuck it out, and I think that just breeds success. And that's why Nebraska was so good for so long.
Nebraska Hall of Famer Chris Kelsay joining us here on the Let It Fly show. So what's it like growing up in Auburn when obviously your brother probably was a big first of all, I saw that he was a triple jumper, which I just can't picture with the size of him. But what was that like in terms of, did you guys kind of run the town? Were you the big man on campus? What was that like?
Ironically, it's like everybody knew who everybody was, and we did everything together with our buddies, and when I say everything, it's every sport, right? We played football, basketball, ran track, baseball, but I can still go to Auburn today and drive down the main street and probably wave at somebody that I know by name. Right. It's a small town, 3,500 people. It was great growing up there. Such a wonderful little town. There's still so many great people down there, but I always tell people, whether I speak at an engagement or something comes up about Auburn, I'm a product of the people that I've been surrounded by, and there's none better than Auburn, Nebraska. Yeah.
You obviously had a dream to play football, but you were also first team all C1 basketball. Do you have any hoop dreams at all?
I actually thought I was going to play college basketball before football.
Really?
I received an offer from Creighton, believe it or not, back when Dana Altman was here. Wow. But as I saw my brother kind of transition from Auburn to the university and just see how he played right away as a freshman, and the biggest thing, probably the biggest shock anyway, is the first time he came home, I had seen him for a few months, and he lost his neck. he went up there, I think 205, 210, maybe 215, and he comes back like 260. So I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
So after that, it was all football. But still really enjoyed playing basketball. It was a great sport. But growing up, this is before anything overlapped. So in junior high, you can wrestle and play basketball. You just have to decide by the time you get to high school. So I wrestled growing up as well, and we played some baseball and obviously did the track thing too. So it was all sports all the time for us.
I want to ask you about a couple seasons specifically, because I had a chance to go to that 1999 Fiesta Bowl. You guys beat up on Tennessee. I thought at the time, best team in the country. If it was a different playoff, obviously you guys would have had a chance. What do you remember about that team? Because you were alternating with Aaron Wills.
Yeah, Aaron Wills and Kyle Vanderbosch.
Right, on the other side. So kind of talk about what that season was like, because you had a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, that was crazy. Crazy game, crazy season. It's still to this day that defense is talked about as one of the best ever played in Nebraska,
Yep.
and to be a part of it is pretty special. But we had so much talent on that team, and who knows, a couple games go a little bit different for us that year, and who knows what could have happened. But the thing I remember the most is that finishing the season off the way we did defensively, like walking off that field. I mean, we whooped up on those boys.
They got carried off every break. Somebody was getting carried off for them. Yeah,
that's what I remember the most.
That's incredible. So let's go back to 2001. Obviously, you end up playing for a national championship. That Colorado game happens.
Yeah.
I've always been curious. So did you guys watch the tape after?
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
Okay.
We did, but
do you remember what the biggest issue was in that game? Like, was it just a responsibilities thing? Was they were just better than you that day? What do you remember from that game?
We weren't fundamentally sound on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they put up a lot of points on us, and we just didn't make the necessary corrections. They took advantage of us. They saw something that they could exploit, and they were able to take advantage of it, like I said, and we just didn't make the right adjustments, and the game got out of hand. Out of hand in a hurry, and the fact that we ended up playing for a national championship after that still to this day blows my mind. But that's a game that I don't want to think about, that I don't think about often.
Sure.
But it was definitely an eye opener.
I think the reason why media people, and I think about it because there was this mystique that the program had, and then after that game, it seems like when you look back now, 2020 hindsight, that really hurt part of the mystique. When you went to go play Miami, did you feel confident you guys could win that game? Did you have it in your back of mind what happened against Colorado? What was the attitude like going into Miami?
We didn't talk about it. I mean, it probably was. I mean, you're human. You're college kids, really, and last time you stepped on the field, you got beat up by the Buffaloes, but. Not making any excuses. That Miami team
they were loaded.
Was legit. Yeah, I think they had 14 eventual first-round draft picks on that team.
Yep.
I'm sure it's in the back of your head. But as you mature in the game and you get a little bit older, you got to have a short memory. Man, you got to put it behind you. You have bad games, and we just unfortunately had one at the worst time. And granted, we still made it to the national championship.
Yeah.
So had a shot. Obviously, didn't go well in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl for the championship, but I try not to think about the Colorado game much.
No, I understand. Because is that still the team you think back that you had the most animus against, or about the team?
When I was there, I would say Colorado was our biggest rival. My brother is probably more Kansas State.
Yeah.
But after Oklahoma, Nebraska, all those years, and it became K-State, Colorado, and that's, I would say, definitely Colorado was the biggest rivalry we had when I was there.
What do you remember about draft day? And did you know, by the way, that you were going to be first, second round? What was your thought? What did your agent tell you going in?
Well, I had my senior year, I tore my hamstring, so I missed a big portion of the year. I was off to a great start. Tore my hamstring. I think it was game 4 or 5, and then I was able to come back for the last regular season game and then play in the bowl game.
Did you come back without surgery?
Without surgery, yeah.
Wow.
Just rest.
Yeah.
And had finished the season with 2 really good games, both last game of the regular season and the bowl game. And I flew out the next morning from the bowl game and down to Brayton, Florida. I signed with IMG that night and started training for the Senior Bowl and the Combine and all that. And when I had my pro day, we met with Kansas City, who had the 16th pick that year. And Carl Peterson was a GM. Dick Vermeil was a head coach. Obviously, Dick had Grant Wistrom in St. Louis, so had that connection. And they told us, they're like, if you're around with a 16th pick, we're going to take you. Well, if you remember, that's when Priest Holmes hurt his hip, so they ended up taking Larry Johnson.
Right.
But then they passed on me again in the second round. So that kind of still sticks in my head a little bit. But I was told, anywhere from 10 to 15 to Arizona, Baltimore at 10, 15 to Arizona, Kansas City at 16. And then once I hurt my hamstring, I fell completely out. And then when I did come back, like I said, I came back strong. I tested out really well at the Combine, had a good Senior Bowl week. I popped back up in that first round, or so they say. But you never know. A lot of things happen.
A lot of lying going on at that time.
Yeah, there is. But you know what? Looking back on it, everybody wants to be a first-round draft pick.
Sure.
There's only 32 picks. So ended up first round came and gone. And the Buffalo Bills took me with the 48th pick in the second round, so 48th overall in the second round. And looking back on it now, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about Buffalo back then. I knew that went to 4 straight Super Bowls, right, and didn't win any of them. But it was an awesome place. Mr. Wilson, the owner at the time, who started the Buffalo Bills, I loved playing for him. He never let me hit free agency, signed me to 3 contracts, and
that's cool.
I'm indebted to him forever. God rest his soul. But great situation for me. I was able to play my entire career there, and it'll always have a special place in my heart.
I always wonder. So now after the first round, night ends, and you go to the second round, to have to sit there after thinking you're going to be a first round, that'd be much tougher.
Well, and here's the deal too, because I got invited to New York. This is when the drafts were at Radio City Music Hall, New York City. They didn't do the jumping around to different cities. I got invited to New York to go to the draft, and I'm glad I didn't go. I just wanted to go to Auburn, do something at my parents' place. My wife Natalie was with us. We had a bunch of friends, family. We just had a big barbecue out back at Mom and Dad's and watched on TV. And I'm glad I did, because I would have been that guy sitting there. I would have been the last guy in the green room. But it all worked out. Again, very thankful. Was I disappointed at the time? Yeah, I'm sure I was. But when you get the call that you're finally getting picked, I mean, all that is behind you. You don't even think about it, and you're just elated. And we had a lot of fun after that.
Chris Kelsay joining us here on Let It Fly Show. Did you play with any former Huskers? I should know this, but did you play with any former Huskers in Buffalo?
So I had Keith Williams, who was an offensive lineman. He came in. He was with us for a short period of time. And then Richie.
Keith Williams, the guard.
Yep.
Okay, and then Richie. Okay.
Yep, and then Richie Incognito came. And, Richie was a freshman at Nebraska, I believe, when I was a senior. And then he came in, and he played down in Miami, and I didn't like him. Yeah. And so now he's my teammate. So it was a little different dynamic, but I ended up getting to like Richie. He's a good guy to have on your side. He athletic,
man. He's quickness. He ran a great 40 at the Combine.
He's a big, strong dude. Quick, like super athletic. But like I said, he's a guy that you want on your side, not against you, because he'll try taking you out.
There's a couple of teammates in Nebraska he almost took out. So they definitely could be that way. Let's talk a little about what's happening now. We talked a little bit off the air about NIL and what's happening with paying the players. Your thoughts on what you're seeing now? Because you're coaching high school, so you're right before that when those guys start getting paid.
At first I was really torn. I thought, just our scholarship checks and, a little per diem money after football games was perfectly fine for us. But as I was telling you on the break, it's a different world out there. And I see it both ways. I really do. I think it's a deal where the players have so much leverage on the teams right now. It's almost not fair. I couldn't imagine being a college football coach recruiting like I've always recruited before, but now having to recruit my own roster as well.
Every year.
And these guys have agents now, so they're going to the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Alabamas and the Georgias and then coming back to Coach Rule and being like, hey, they're going to pay my client this. Can you match it or exceed it? Otherwise, we're gone. Puts you in a tough spot, especially now that you only have 105 guys on your roster. But like I said, I see it from the player's standpoint too. Most of these kids, I don't know statistics, but if I was to guess, I'd say 75 to 85% of them have more earning power now than they'll have the rest of their lives.
Right.
So you can't fault them for trying to get a payday and making as much money as they can during the short window. So I'm glad they're getting paid. I think they need more restrictions and regulations.
Oh, yeah.
And a salary cap, because it's just the wild, wild west right now.
Yeah, you almost want the federal government to get involved, but at the same time, you don't want the federal government to get involved, but somebody's got to regulate it better than it is. So I know a lot of former players that are high school coaches, coordinators, just right down the street at Central. Abdul Muhammad's down there. I see him all the time. My kid's going to school there. Okay. What's it like doing that now? What's the feeling like being in the middle of it?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I've coached my son since he was in flag football, and then he did the whole MYFL tackle from the time he was in 4th grade. He finished up his 8th grade this year, so he'll be coming to high school next year with us. But I feel like I'm in a place where I can contribute as a volunteer, co-defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, and give back a little bit of what I learned along my journey, and hopefully give these kids the best opportunity they have to maybe experience some of the things that I experienced, if they so choose.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is just staying in the game, game planning,
right,
making calls, situational football, all that. I'm with a great group of guys. Justin Haberman's the head coach, came from West Side.
Yeah, sure.
He's the other co-defensive coordinator. Yeah. He was DC at West Side for years and years and years. So
with Cade, his son.
Yeah. Cade, and then his younger boy Cole.
Yeah.
But, it's been a blast. He called me and asked me if I wanted to join his staff. I did. He put together a really good staff. Our first year, we didn't have a senior class. We won 3 games, which I think is still the most games a first-year program has won in the state of Nebraska. And then this last year, our first year with a senior class, we went to the quarterfinals. We're up 21 points with 10 minutes left in the game. Should have won the game, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? But second year, almost made it to the semifinals. So expectations are high. We lose, I think, 15 seniors. 7 of them are going on to play college football. So it's just a real joy to be a part of that and contribute back to the game. And hopefully, like I said, empower these kids with some tools that they can take to the next level and use to their benefit.
And also, what do you do now? What is your profession?
I'm the operations manager for truck center companies as well. We've got we're a Freightliner Western Star dealership group. We've got 17 locations across Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and Minnesota. So I'm still doing that as well.
Right.
Luckily, I know the owner and Trey Mitty, who's a huge Husker fan and supporter, and has always been a big fan of mine. And he gives me a lot of freedom. I'm able to put in the time at the school during the football season and still get my work done. Yeah,
it gives you a chance to relax. I saw Chris Bober out at Creighton Prep, and he was you could see he looked like, I'm like, he's not selling houses right now.
Right.
He just feels comfortable. He's happy to be out there.
Yeah, I just ran into Chris. We were down in Kansas City at the Glazier Coaches Clinic here a couple weekends ago, and there's a few guys on staff that I run into, and it's when that's all you've known for a better part of your life, it's hard just to turn it off. And I know I retired in February 2013, so it's been a while for me. But when you've had somebody telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, basically your entire life, and then your identity has always been football, and now one day you retire and it's not there. So that's another big reason why I've stayed in coaching, and whether it's youth or high school now. But I love the game of football. It was such an amazing blessing to me and my family that now it's my time to give back to.
What position your boy play?
He was like a kind of a split in.
Okay.
But he was my middle linebacker.
Okay.
He's not real big. He hasn't hit puberty yet. He's asked me almost daily, Dad, when am I going to hit my growth spurt?
Right.
Just be patient. And, in the back of my mind, I think he's got a little mom. My wife is tiny, and I just hope that he doesn't take after her.
You absolutely, the genetic soup. You have no idea.
You don't know.
I have a blonde, blue-eyed kid. Yeah. So I mean, you just absolutely never know. Yeah. One of the last questions I have is, what was it like that you do retire and you get a chance to spend a lot of time with your kids and just getting them to practice and doing that with your wife and making sure she's got where they need to go? What was that whole thing like for you guys?
It was interesting because I only lasted about a year and a half before my buddy told me to come work for him.
Yeah.
And Natalie was perfectly fine with that, because you got to realize I'm gone all the time. When I was playing ball for 10 years,
right?
Well, after we started having kids, the first 2 years was just the two of us, but I was gone a lot.
Yeah.
Even when we were home, I was gone by 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and wasn't home until 5, 6 o'clock at night. And then you eat dinner, you watch a little film, and then you go to bed.
Right.
So I was messing up her routine. You know, she had her own
right.
own set schedule and had a routine with the kids, and Dad's home now, and he was messing things up. But she's awesome. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and we both knew that I had to do something. You know, I'm a big outdoorsman. I love to hunt and fish, but you can only do so much of that. And it's about waking up in the morning and having something bigger than yourself on the docket. But the number one reason I went back to work is because I think it's important for my kids to see their dad work. Mm-hmm. That was my deal.
Yeah.
I don't want them to see a dad that's at home when they go to school and still there when they get back. So my parents were hard workers, worked their entire lives until retirement, and I want my kids to see me do the same thing. Yeah,
you got mission and vision. You got to have those two things. Last thing, obviously it's been a tough stretch for Nebraska football. Mm-hmm. We've all covered that. Matt Rule's here. They finally get to a bowl game. They win a bowl game. What are your thoughts watching that team play, and what's your hopes for 2025?
I've got high expectations. I'm very hopeful. I absolutely love Matt Rule as a coach for Nebraska. I think he is the right guy. I was actually able to take my son with Trey and his boys and another buddy of ours and his son to the Pinstripe Bowl out in New York to watch him finish the year with a bowl win, first one in a long, long time. So you take that momentum into the off season. We've had some great additions, losing Tony White, but we have Butler that's stepping in as DC, a Buffalo guy. I'm just really excited. I think they're getting the right pieces in place, and again, it comes back to being a college football coach right now, because you're not really building a culture every year. You're building a team,
right? And
the culture is going to be changing because your team changes every year, kind of like a professional team. So it's a lot different than when we played, where you have that culture established and you either fit in and get in, or you're out. Mm-hmm. Where now it's we need the best guys that we can get to put the best product on the field that we're trying to accomplish, both offensively, defensively, and special teams. Obviously, with Eckler coming in to run the special teams now. So I'm excited. I'm always excited, though. I'm always optimistic. Everybody's undefeated right now, so we'll see how it goes. But, I actually get to go to an event Thursday night where Coach Rule is going to be speaking at it. So I look forward to hearing from him here in a couple days.
You got to get the right character guys, right?
Absolutely.
You get them into your system. You get whatever conditioning you're doing during winter, get them in the spring, and then by the time the fall comes around, they're your guys.
Yeah,
it's maybe different. They're part of that culture.
Yeah, you're getting paid to play now, so you need to grow up and be a leader when called upon, and approach it more as a job. But I think they're doing a good job. They've worked tirelessly since they took the job, and I mean, I don't know how these guys do it, man. It's a lot of time away from family.
It is.
And it's 24/7, 365.
Waking up in the office. Going to sleep in the office. Chris, we appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
Thanks
I appreciate
again.
You for having
Always
me.
coming on. I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Chris Kelsay, new Nebraska Football Hall of Fame. All right, special thanks to Chris Kelsay for coming in with us. Always good getting a chance to catch up with Chris. I once did a Big Red Breakfast with Chris and Chad on there together, and I know there's a 3-year gap in terms of classes with them, but they're so different personality-wise. Like, Chris will answer the question, and give you this complete answer, and Chad was just like a little more serious and, a little bit shorter answers, just kind of different personalities, just 3 years in between them in terms of the classes. But the prides of Auburn, Nebraska, both those guys ending up in the Hall of Fame for Nebraska football, which is pretty darn cool. Special thanks as well to everybody that helps make this possible. The man behind the board right here, taking care of everything, and that is Caleb, our technical director. Mike Allen, executive producer. He's the guy, too, that makes sure the bar runs, and so we appreciate him as well. And video coordinator Dion for taking care of business as well from Stable Gray, so thanks to them for being here. Also, we want to thank our presenting sponsor, Bud Light. As I mentioned all the time, no matter where you are, no matter what time of the year it is, no matter what sport you're watching, easy to drink and easy to enjoy. That is Bud Light throughout the state of Nebraska. Remember, you subscribe to the podcast. You can go on YouTube and subscribe and like on there. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or wherever else, be sure to hit the like button for that as well. It certainly helps us out. We appreciate that. We also appreciate just everybody listening and commenting and and telling me they enjoyed the show or they don't like the show either way. And also thanks to Red Bull as well for being part of the sponsorship. I'm sure Josh will be back next week. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll check you out next time on the Let It Fly Show.